I am what you could call an incorrigible optimist. And yet, I find it challenging sometimes to feel enthusiastic or just confident about the future, especially given the daily headlines about the state of our planet. As part of my work in the circular economy, I end up reading countless reports by experts and scientists about all environmental issues, be it climate change, loss of biodiversity, or ocean acidification. Above all, I am a citizen and a consumer, like all of you. And I know this feeling of despair, almost apathy, when I look at the mountains that we must move to turn this world into what it could be. But as a professional, and as the eternal optimist that I am, I try to focus on the possibilities. And for that reason, I rather enjoy reading about solutions. I became really intrigued by one book in particular, Drawdown, by Paul Hawken, in which dozens of experts have analyzed about 100 natural and industrial solutions that together could reverse the state of global warming. It covers things like plant-rich diet, wind turbines, restorative agriculture, girls' education, or refrigeration gases. And for each solution, they have quantified the amount of emissions that it could absorb or reduce, the capital funding required, and the return on investment. I got two main takeaways from it. First, all solutions we need to live sustainably exist already, but they need to be scaled. And second, nature can help us do this, because if we restore the Earth, nature will help by absorbing more emissions from human activities. So I became obsessed with one thought. If we have less than 10 years to act, what is the fastest way to adopt the solutions that can reverse climate change? Should we leave it to our governments, the industry, the investors? What about us? What can we do? After all, we have two major powers as individuals. Our power as consumer, with the money we spend or don't spend, and our power as citizen, with our vote and with our voice. So where do we go from here? How can we leverage our power to trigger change? Well, my conclusion is that we have to use this power to demand the one thing that will unlock everything. And what we must demand is transparency. Transparency around the environmental impact of each and every item we buy, use, or consume. Transparency as a clear label, visible on every product. So why would transparency change everything? Well, this reflection emerged as a result of my work on plastic pollution. 5 years ago, the issue of plastic pollution was just emerging in the media. It wasn't something the general public was yet aware of. And it surely wasn't being addressed the way it is today. Then the issue became visible, thanks to initiatives like the Ocean Cleanup, and by NGOs, and the public and media that started raising awareness around it. That's when something remarkable happened. Plastic pollution went from being someone else's responsibility to being everyone's responsibility. And that had a powerful domino effect. Policymakers broke all speed records at starting to address an issue. The industry started working hand in hand on product redesign or to kickstart funds that would develop the missing infrastructure. And consumers, well, you reconsidered your consumption behavior. You started replacing some single-use items by reusable ones and recycling more. Some of you may even have turned to a zero-waste lifestyle. My take is, for an issue to become seriously tackled, like plastic waste today, the negative consequences have to be both visible and relatable. Now, the issue of climate change is in absolutely every discussion today. And yet, do you find it relatable to you in your everyday life? And do you concretely know how to reduce your impact? Well, the first thing that most of us will agree with is that to reduce our impact, we should consume less. But what about food? We still have to feed ourselves every day, and agriculture accounts for the largest share of human impact. Okay, the next thing that comes to mind is that we should consume better or of lower impact. But are we always given the opportunity to do so? And how are we, as consumers, empowered to know? The fact is that there are gaps today for us to implement our consumer power positively. You'll tell me that we can learn about the impact of the top food categories and apply a few principles, like eating local and seasonal. Yeah, we can apply that. When it comes to calculating the real environmental impact of anything, the answer is often, it depends. There's no straight conclusion that can be drawn from literally any product we consume, because it depends on the way it's been produced, transported, stored, transformed, or packaged. And things get very complicated with processed food. Take cookie, for example. Simple enough. Flour, sugar, egg, and fat. But is the fat coming from butter, or sunflower oil, or palm oil? Where does each ingredient come from? How and where has it been grown, harvested, transported? And what type of energy was used to cook it? Are you starting to see the complexity that is hidden behind even the most simple products? And that does not even start to paint the full picture. If you just add chocolate to these cookies, you can literally have a 10-fold variation between the best-in-kind and the worst-in-kind cookies. But what convinced me that transparency is the missing link is when I realized that even the life cycle assessment experts I work with, the very people who would be able to accurately calculate the CO2 emissions coming from a coffee capsule or a whole meal, are actually as lost as you and me when they shop for a cookie or any other product. Because they would need to have access to the value chain information and full disclosure of it to be able to get clarity. You know, I'm the first one to say that there is no silver bullet, but there can be a first domino that pushes all the other ones. And transparency is that first domino. Transparency will turn our consumer power into a consumer superpower. Because when we are armed with transparency, our purchases will have a ripple effect in the industry. A new element of competitiveness will emerge and will make companies change the very products they are designing for us, way beyond the green marketing trend that is too often just a positioning exercise. And the most sustainable solutions will finally be used and scaled and will cascade to all levels, from manufacturing to agriculture and logistics. But for this to happen, we will first need to use our citizen power. Because actually, every piece of the puzzle already exists to adopt transparency at product level. Hundreds of experts have worked for more than 10 years to align all existing methodologies to assess the environmental footprint of products. And this could translate into legislation and make environmental labeling mandatory. So why isn't it here already, right? Well, it's one thing to get 27 industrial sectors to collaborate and find compromises on how to measure product impact as part of a voluntary exercise. As you can imagine, it's quite a different thing to then ask for this impact to be transparently communicated at consumer level, because that step change would see some winners and some losers. And policymakers haven't been empowered to push for this to happen, because no consumer has asked for transparency yet. And no citizen has pressured their governments and policymakers for transparency yet. So that change hasn't happened yet. To governments, we are electors, the public opinion. And to companies, we are customers, money spenders. Let's not underestimate our power as consumers and citizens. We have the power to trigger that change and allow the adoption of the solutions that can reverse climate change. So yes, let's protest, let's invade the streets, sign petitions, and raise our voice. But now, we need to do more than just shouting to our governments that there's a problem. They know this already. They may not know where to start to address it. And to change our behaviors globally and make low-impact lifestyle mainstream, we need to understand the impact behind our actions. We need to see what's invisible today and make the intangible tangible. And for this, the new word on every protest sign, the new word in every consumer and every citizen mouth has to be transparency. Thank you.